Sevastopol, what's up? How y'all doing this morning? Really? Can I get it one more time? How y'all doing this morning? Okay, I'm really glad to be in the space this morning. Kind of on a Door County tour. I had to do 5 presentations yesterday. I started at Southern Door. I did 2 presentations there, and then I was at Sturgeon Bay for their middle school and high school. That I ended up doing a community-wide presentation last night. And so I'm a little tired because when I drove up on Sunday, I had to do yard work all day, and then when I checked into the hotel, it's quite fitting that we're in the gym this morning because I do have a background in basketball. And so when I got to my room, I had to watch Game 7. Of the Houston Rockets and Steph Curry. That's my guy, Steph Curry. You know, Michael Jordan is the GOAT, you know. So I was a little tired yesterday, but I'm feeling pretty good this morning. Thank you again for that warm introduction. You know, before I got into education, I had worked with youth for a few years, and then I took a step back. I'm from the Madison area. And in 2003, I was fortunate enough to have been offered an opportunity to be a business manager for an NBA player. Reese Gaines. In 2003, he was the first round draft pick, so I had an opportunity to go to New York. I was at Madison Square Garden in the 4th row. Did anybody tell me who was drafted in the NBA draft in 2003? Who was the #1 pick? Anybody know?
LeBron James.
LeBron James. My man. So, you know, I'm in New York City. I got a chance to meet LeBron, hung out with him a little bit at his draft party at Jay-Z's club in Lower Manhattan. And so, you know, it was an amazing experience. Reese was drafted to the Orlando Magic. And I had an opportunity to really see the NBA from behind the scenes, right? My goal when I was your age was to be the next coming of Michael Jordan. I never made it to 6'6". I played college basketball, and I ended up coming back to Madison. And when I got into education, I was a basketball coach at Madison Memorial, and we won the state championship when I was coaching with them in 2009. But I gotta say, man, I love this gym. If I were in high school right now, I got on my retro 4 Jordans. School colors are matching. I was actually a sophomore or junior in high school when these came out, and so. Man, if I could go back in time and be as Sevastopol as a basketball player, I think I'd be averaging about 35. So Eddie Hooper's in here. Y'all think you want to challenge me one-on-one to go at him, you know. But yeah, you know, I'm here today to talk to you all a little bit about technology. I've been in education for over 20 years. I've worked with a lot of school districts across the country. I've had opportunities to lecture at Harvard, Columbia, other institutions of higher learning, but I've got to be honest with you, man, my excitement and my joy is when I have opportunities to speak to young people. As an educator, I believe that you all have a voice in shaping what your education looks like, right? You know, teachers, administrators, superintendents, we're the experts, but we're also customer service agents. And our job should really be to make sure that we're serving you and providing you every single thing that you need so that you can fulfill and prepare yourself for your purpose in life. But today, right, you are our generation that for the first time has interfaced with technology unlike any other group of human beings in human history. I like to tell you all that you are part of history. And the reason why I say you all are a part of history is because, you know, just 5 years ago, pretty much the whole world shut down. I remember in Madison, it was Friday the 13th, 2002, when we shut schools down. And everybody went into virtual learning, right? So now, instead of being in a building every single day learning from your teachers, being in the community with each other, as peers, everything was happening online. The only way that you can really communicate with your friends is by way of social media or other mediums of technology, right? When you go back and you think about that, you were on a computer screen for about 7 or 8 hours a day, learning. The only way that you could communicate and hang out with your friends was in virtual communities by way of social media apps. And so for a period of period of time, not just young people, but even adults, we were spending at least 12 hours a day glued to the screen. And now that we are out of that, there are people that are starting to research the consequences of what we all went through as a human family, particularly here in the United States of America. And there are things surfacing that are really important for you all to know so that you can make the best decisions for yourself, primarily focusing in on responsible use of technology. Because what I'm going to share with you, I hope that you take the information seriously, think about it critically, and then make whatever adjustments you need to make in your own life when it comes down to use of technology and making sure that it doesn't get the best of it. You know, I'm an old head, I'm 51 years old, and I can honestly say, you know, man, technology over the last half century has made tremendous progress. I mean, there were cartoons that were out when I was a kid, like the Jetsons. I don't know if y'all ever heard of the Jetsons, but that was like a cartoon based in the future. And some of the things that were in that cartoon were things that, you know, when you're kids, like, man, that'll never happen in my lifetime. But believe it or not, a lot of those things are actually front and center in our lives every single day. So I just want to see what you all know about technology when it comes down to history a little bit. So I'm just going to flash a few images and just blurt it out if you know what you're seeing on the screen. So I'm going to take you back to the 1970s. What's that image on the left? The left. My right, I'm sorry. Wake up. What's that on my right? Record player. What's next to the record player? Not the boom box, but there's something else right next to the record player. What did you say? CD. Nope, not a CD. Nope, not even a cassette. Who said 8-track? Raise your hand. Oh, the teacher. The 8-track was the first version of the cassette, right? The 8-track was probably like this, right? The cassette is like that. So that's the 1970s. You all said that was a boom box. When I was in high school, my freshman, I think it was 1988, you know, you could be walking in my neighborhood and you see cats, you know, with the boom box up on their ears and, you know, just walk down the street doing this, right? You don't see that today. So that's the 70s and 80s. To the right, obviously, a TV. That's probably a 27-inch. And it's probably about this wide, but probably like this thick. And probably weighed about 300 pounds. But when we look at TVs today, right, some kids, I got an 80-inch TV at home. I'm like, yeah, it's probably like this, and probably like that thin. Right? And that TV right there was no such thing as a remote control. If you wanted to change the channel, you had to get up off your seat, go to the TV, and click, 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 click. But then to add to that, when I was growing up, we had two options. We had the color TV, and we had the black and white TV. Has anybody ever seen a black and white show? Okay, all right. Some of y'all have. I see more older folks with that. Then, to my left, we got the VCR. Back in the day, if you really wanted to watch a movie, right, like you all have the luxury of being able to turn on Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, and you have hundreds of movies right there at your disposal. But back in the day, you literally would have to drive to Blockbuster Video or Family Video to go rent the movies that you wanted to see. Right? I'm just kind of giving you some examples of, and this wasn't even that long ago, right? This is your parents' generation, right? When you think about the advances in technology. I tell you, tech works for you, sometimes it doesn't. There you go. What do we got on the screen right there? DVD player, and then what's next to the DVD player? Discman. Today, you got Spotify, you got Apple Music, where you can just listen to thousands of songs, right? You can listen to hundreds of different artists by literally just click and you can switch it up like that. Imagine having a Discman and you want to switch up your music. You literally would have to have a case. They used to sell CD So if you wanted to switch your music up, you literally have to haul this big old case with different CDs if you wanted to switch your music up. Right, so you had to put in work to be able to switch your music up, but today, because of the advances in technology, you don't have to do those things. And then Nintendo. Anybody ever played Nintendo? Okay. How many of you all played Duck Hunt? Oh wow, okay, so some of y'all are actually vintage. That was the only shooting game that existed in the 80s and early 90s. Right, but now with the PlayStations, and I was a gamer for a while. I think I stopped gaming probably like 12 or 13 years ago. I was a big fan of Madden. I was a big fan of 2K. One of your teachers came up to me because I think he was at the presentation last night, and I was talking about a basketball game called Double Dribble. And Double Dribble, literally, like the players were stick figures. They moved like this, and they shot like this. Like everything was like square. But today, you know, literally, if you're playing 2K, like LeBron looks like LeBron. Steph Curry looks like Steph Curry. The crossovers, I mean, everything is so fluid, right? I'm just sitting here like the technology, you know, has advanced in so many ways that it's truly unbelievable to go from that to what we have right now. But I want you to think about duck hunting and think about the shooting games today. Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. Who can tell me, like, what are the differences between the two games? Okay, so missions, Grand Theft Auto, you can make money. What differences in those games would you say are when it comes to duck hunting? They're both shooting games. You can shoot anything. What do you got in the back? More open world. Tell me a little bit more about that. Okay, thank you for that. What you got? You can play with other players online, right? Like back in the day, if you wanted to compete with your friend literally had you sitting next to you. But today, right, you can literally be playing Call of Duty with people from around the world. The other difference is that what I want you to think about is the level of violence between the two. Right, there's a difference between shooting a duck and engaging in violent behavior by way of war and shooting other human beings. And if you're on these gaming consoles and you're playing Call of Duty, you know, for 3 or 4 hours a day, your brain is processing information, violent information, and if the brain is receiving, you know, tons upon tons of information that's violent, especially towards another human being, you know, that can start to normalize violence in the human mind, right? So when we're interfacing with this new technology, we need to be more consciously aware of the ways in which our brain is processing the information or the experiences that we're having with these games, right? Duck hunt is innocent. Hunting is a way of life for human beings, right? Now, and some of you all plan on going into the military, maybe there is some purpose behind engaging in Call of Duty, even though Call of Duty will never be the same exact as real war. But again, if you're engaged in games like this, you're giving your brain experiences that's nothing but violence. And are you consciously aware to make sure that those violent experiences that you're interfacing with is not becoming a part of how you see the world or how you see other human beings? Right, and then the other part about it is that the technology back in the day, it was a program. And the computer, I mean the game, all it could give you was the program. So you were pretty much in full control. Today, the technology is more than a program. The technology is actually responding to you because it's engaging with you and actually learning about you. By way of the algorithms, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit, right? And so technology is completely different than what it was 50 years ago. Cell phones. Man, back in the day, those things were big clunker jumpers. A huge difference. In my senior year in high school, the phones that you see right there weren't even out. You had to be extremely wealthy to have a cell phone like that. I mean, that phone probably cost like $3,000 or $4,000. But they had fake ones at Walgreens, and I was a jokester in high school. And so I went and purchased one, right? You could push the button and it would ring and stuff like that. So I brought one to school, you know, walking down the hallway during passing time, I pushed the button. Yeah, what's up? So what's going on? You know, girls looking at me like, how you got set up on Percy? Damn, like that, you know. Somebody was a hater, they told on me, and I got sent to the principal's office. The principal thought I had a real cell phone, right? And that was like unheard of for a high school student to have a cell phone. But when I went to the principal's office, I'm like, Mr. Boss, this thing is fake, right? And I'm just kind of giving you an example, and that was only 30 years ago. So cell phones weren't even a thing just 3 decades ago. When cell phones finally did come out, it was just simply you could talk. Text came a few years later. Right now, we're interfacing with our apps and everything else. The internet is on your phone, and we can thank Steve Jobs for that because apps and internet hit the iPhone, I think back in 2012 with the iPhone 5. Right, so it's important for you to kind of understand the backdrop of the history of technology so that you can better understand how we got to the place that we're in today. And I can say in a lot of ways, you know, technology, and because of the ways that we've been hooked in, there are some dangers. Now on the flip side, there are a lot of advantages to the technology that we have today. Right? And you need to use the technology that gives you the advantages to help you do the things that you want to do in your life. But at the same time, there are dangers that you need to be aware of and that only you can control, right? I know you all have a pretty tight cell phone policy, but that doesn't dictate how you use your cell phone before school, after school, at home, and on the weekends, right? And the reason why I really got into this is because last year, I ended up working with 26 schools across 5 school districts in Wisconsin and California. And whenever I'm working with schools, I always like to have student focus groups so that I can learn more about their schools, about their district, from their point of view, and not always from the adults. And when I'm engaging kids, you know, I like to ask them what they want to be when they grow up. And I was meeting with a bunch of elementary students and like 4th and 5th graders. And so I'm like, so what do you want to be when you grow up? And I swear like 8 out of 10, out of every group I had, I want to be a YouTube influencer, Mr. Brown. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're like 8 years old, you want to be a YouTube influencer? So I'm like, you watch YouTube? I said, so what else do you watch? Or what else are you engaged in? Oh man, we got Instagram, we got Snapchat, you know, we got TikTok, and I'm like, how? I'm like, don't you have to be like 13 or 14? Yeah, Mr. Brown, but we know how to work around that. And I'm like, geez, I'm like, you know, that's really scary. Because it bothers me to know that we got 8, 9, 10, 11, 10-year-olds that are engaging on these platforms where they're being exposed to adults from all around the world. Right, we never know who we're really interfacing with unless we're close friends with those people. Right, so there's that piece that kind of raised my radar. But then the other thing was I served as a dean of students for a few years, which is a primary handler of behavior and discipline. And I can honestly say about 70% of the behavioral issues that I was dealing with students were coming from social media issues that were happening outside of the school, but then bringing its way into the school. Right, so on a lot of levels, I was seeing technology being problematic in the learning environment, but it was also fracturing a lot of relationships with young people. And so, you know, last year I was experiencing and learning so much from students that I ended up going down the rabbit hole because I wanted to better understand what's going on with technology. especially considering that we were all plugged into technology during the pandemic. And in all of that, if you've got Netflix, I strongly encourage you to watch the documentary, The Social Dilemma. Very powerful documentary on social media, how it was designed, why it was designed. For the teachers, there's a great book called The Anxious Generation. And I would say you should probably read that too as high school students, because it'll take you deeper than what I'll be providing for you today. And so, technology. How many of you all, just by show of hands, think that the brain and computers have a lot in common? Can you give me an example of how the brain and the computer might be similar? They can calculate math and really fast. Anybody else? What you got, sir? Store stuff like information. Anybody else? Okay, very good. You all are pretty much spot on, right? So the brain and computers use electrical signals to send messages. The brain and computers both transmit information. The brain and computers can adapt and learn. Both can do math and other logical tasks. How many of you all are familiar with AI? Okay, so you know a little bit about it. How many of you all think that the human brain is smarter than artificial intelligence? Some of you all? Okay. Well, right now, the human brain is still a bit more powerful and smarter than artificial intelligence, but there's this thing called singularity. And singularity is when AI actually arrives and is on par with the human mind. And they're projecting that AI will reach singularity sooner than projected. Right? And so if AI is at par with us, it won't be too far in the future that AI probably will surpass human potential and capacity when it comes down to intelligence. And what might that mean for us as human beings? And you all are going to have to grapple with that question, right? Because you all are truly the generation of technology. Y'all can see that. This is your world based on research. How many of y'all are watching YouTube? Nobody's on YouTube? Okay. Snapchat? Instagram? TikTok? Be real, that's not a thing up here. What about Roblox? Why does everybody laugh when I say Roblox? What is it about Roblox? And somebody tell me, what is it about Roblox? What's that? Who wants to speak up on Roblox? Educate me. What you got, boss? What's that? They got everything. What's everything? Like all kind of games? Oh, you can run from SpongeBob? Roblox is like that? Mouse and cheese. Mice and cheese. How many of you all like to backdoor through the firewalls here at school so that you can play Roblox on your laptops? Oh, nobody wants to tell the truth? Oh, we got one brain soul. We got one brain soul. Hey, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. These apps, right, it's doing a lot for us. Roblox, my wife had sent me something, right? I thought Roblox was just a bunch of games where all of the characters look like Lego figures. But I'm hearing that it's much more complex and expansive than that. Like when I saw it on the surface, I thought it was just like games for little kids. But I'm hearing that you can do a whole lot on Roblox. Even some of the stuff that you can do is inappropriate and probably like along the lines of Grand Theft Auto. Right, but I know that there are a lot of young kids that are on Roblox and their parents think that they're just playing age-appropriate games, but who knows what those children are interfacing with, right? And those are some of the dangers with technology, some of these social media apps, right? You're opening up young people to adult content. You're opening up young people to be interfacing with adults that might be able to manipulate you and to do other things like that, right? Because these apps are designed for us to build our following, right? To get likes and to get comments. And sometimes we do that without filtering the people that we're bringing into our space. Right, and just yesterday, I think it was at both schools, students had shared with me that because of, young people interfacing on these platforms, they got into connection with the wrong individual, and that individual influenced them to take their life. Even last night at the community presentation, the executive director of the United Way talked about how someone within their family friends, the kid was on social media, interfaced with the wrong person, and committed suicide just last year. Right, and we've got to be mindful of how we are using technology and who we're interfacing with when we're on technology. Who can tell me, right, you got YouTube, you got Snapchat, you got Instagram, what is the purpose or what is the goal of social media? Entertainment. Connection.
Just connecting with people and friendship.
Connecting with people and friendship. Anything else? Money. What do you mean by money? Making money. That's exactly what it is. And it's more than just making money. The design of social media apps, one, is to get you to sign up, and once you sign up, the goal is to keep you as the user on their platform as long as possible, right? Because you're thinking that it's all about connectivity, you're giving those platforms your data. You're giving those platforms your information. You're posting pictures, you're posting videos, you're posting your thoughts, you're posting the things that you like, you're posting the things that you don't like, and as you're doing that, and this is the difference between the technology today from back in the day. Back in the day, the technology couldn't extract your data. You couldn't tell the computer that you were having surgery because you broke your arm. You couldn't tell technology that you just earned a scholarship as a Division I athlete. But today, because of algorithms, raise your hand if you're aware of the algorithms. Right, the algorithms are designed to extract everything about you so that they can package it and sell it off to corporate America. Last October, I was looking for a new car. I'm on Google, I'm shopping different SUVs and stuff like that, right? And like 3 days later, I'm an old head, right? So I just popped on Facebook, I wanted to troll Facebook for a minute. And when I got on there, every single car that I looked at, there was an ad. So I'm like, dang. So Google is talking to Facebook. Right, and a lot of folks, not just young people, but even adults, we are putting our whole lives on these platforms. And even if you deactivate your account, everything that you posted, they own it. You cannot get that back. And when you think about artificial intelligence, right, the algorithms now with artificial intelligence, they're learning, right? It's learning so fast that it can start to predict what you like. It can predict information and things that you like, and so when it knows that, the reels and all of that other good stuff, it starts to kick back the things that it thinks you like. It's predicting your behavior. 10 or 15 years from now, it might be able to do more than just predict your behavior. It might be able to control your behavior. If you're not a critical thinker, and you're not aware that every time you get on there and you put something, that it's learning about you. Like, that might sound like science fiction for a computer to be able to control your behavior. But if it's already able to predict, why will it not in 15 or 20 years, because it might be smarter than us, be able to control your behavior? Even Netflix. I'm watching Peaky Blinders. As soon as the episode is over, it's moving me to the next one. Or it'll say, because I watch Peaky Blinders, it'll start recommending other shows for me to watch. Even Netflix is learning about me. Right? Or I'm sitting down and I'm watching the episode and I step away for 15 minutes and I'm doing something and I come back to the TV. What's on the TV screen? Are you still there? Have you ever thought about that? Like, how in the world does Netflix know that I'm not paying attention to the screen? You really got to think about that, right? Nintendo wasn't digging in and getting all my information like that. Even PlayStation, all these consoles, when you're on Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto and you're interfacing with all these people from around the world, it's extracting your data and you're willingly giving it up for free. Right? And you all really have to think about that. Our data should be personal. It should be private. Right? Because the more and more we give it away, it makes us vulnerable to exploitation. And honestly, at the end of the day, social media apps is all about economic exploitation. They cater to teenagers more than anybody because you're the largest consumers of products and goods. So you're the target. It's coming after you. It's not because of connectivity. It's because they will learn everything about you so that they can exploit you, and they exploit you by keeping you on there for long and long periods of time. But there's even issues with that, right? And this is how they keep you hooked. There's a couple of ways that they keep you hooked. This is Instagram. It's called the hook model. And the hook model is the first thing that they want to do is get you to sign up, right? And then once you sign up, they start hitting you with notifications, right? And that notification, when you get that notification, it's got your attention. It's going to make you open up the app, right? You're going to see what the notification was. More than likely, you might respond to it, or the notification might be a response to something that you posted, right? And you get excited. You want to see who commented on your post. And then you respond back. And then what comes after that is you might have 5 new friend requests or something like that, right? So now it's making you feel good because now you're starting to build a following, right? It's making you feel important. And once you get into that cycle, if you're not aware of it, man, you will be on there all the time. Again, technology was not moving and engaging with humanity back then in the way that it is today. But the people that are designing these platforms are intentionally trying to hook you. Now here's the crazy thing. Raise your hand if you know who Steve Jobs is. He's the guy who gave us Apple, gave us the iPhone, gave us the iPad. Steve Jobs had children. Steve Jobs did not let his children have a cell phone or an iPad until they were 14 years old. I wonder why. Even all of the tech executives today, the people that are creating all of these platforms for us, giving us all of this nice technology, they have kids, but they send their kids to Waldorf schools. Waldorf schools are completely tech-free. No laptops, no cell phones, no iPads, nothing. And so you have to ask yourself, what do they know that we don't know? Or what are they trying to keep from us? Right, and I would say it was about 8 years ago ago, all of a sudden, maybe it was 10 years ago, there was a strong push to go one-to-one. And what I mean by that is that there was this push to make sure that every single student had a device, had a laptop to access learning. And learning that, these guys that are creating this technology don't even give their own children technology, why would there be a push for one-to-one? What is it about technology that they know that we don't know or that they're unwilling to share? These are the questions that you have to ask yourselves as you're engaging and really trying to develop the skill set to be a responsible user of technology. Here's the other thing. So I talked about the hook model. Video games and social media affect the brain in the same way as addictive drugs. And it does that by triggering the release of dopamine. Can anybody tell me what dopamine is? Does anybody know what dopamine is? Yes. Dopamine is a chemical that's released in the human body that gives you pleasure, that makes you feel good. Right? And so every time you get on your social media app or every time you go online to engage in Call of Duty, it's triggering the release of dopamine. Right? So you get excited, you're feeling good, and when that dopamine is being released, that's what keeps you on there as well, longer and longer. And if you're on the game for 4 or 5 hours a day and you're giving the machines your dopamine, how much dopamine will you have left for the rest of your time? Right? Will there be other things in your life that will make you feel good that would trigger the release of dopamine? Right? And so if you're on these devices or you're on social media platforms or you're gaming for multiple hours a day, just like drugs, just like alcohol, just like gambling, you can fall into addiction. And the addiction is real. I work with a high school principal who has a freshman. He woke up one night and he saw his son gaming at like 2:30 in the morning on a school night. And so he felt like he had to do something, so he shut down the internet from 10 at night to 6:30 in the morning. His son lost his mind. He said his son was acting like he was demon possessed. Then he had to take his son's cell phone for a few days. Same response. His son was acting like he was demon possessed. I had to tell the principal, I'm like, it sounds like your son is addicted. And imagine being addicted as a teenager at 14. Right? You haven't even started life yet. Right? And so do you want to be giving all of your dopamine, right? Your good energy, your positive energy. Do you want to give that to technology? You got to ask yourself that, right? Because if you're giving it all to technology, if you're a basketball player and you're putting 6 hours in on 2K, you're not going to have enough dopamine when it's time for basketball practice. Or you might not have enough dopamine for that big game that's going to help you win the conference. Or you get into the fourth quarter because you're giving all your dopamine to 2K, to something that's not even real. You might be gassed out or not excited enough to make sure you close the game to try to get the win. This is your reality, young people. And this is why it matters. The research is showing me that preteens are spending almost 40 hours a week on these platforms in a leisurely way. Your age group is pushing 50 hours a week. There's only 168 hours in a week. So if you're putting in 50 hours like this, or like this, now you're down to 138 hours. As young people, you're supposed to be getting at least 8 hours of sleep a night. Times that by 7, that's 56 hours. Now you're pushing over 100 hours and have about 60 left. You're in school for almost 40 hours a week. Now you're down to like 20 hours. Right? You still got to shower, still got to eat. What about time for your friends, like in-person friends playing sports? That's 2 hours a day, plus game, right? So what's left? So a lot of teenagers are giving up more than 25% of their time per week to something that I would say is not productive. If you're spending 50 hours a week on that, you should be trying to ask yourself, well, am I putting in as much time developing myself to become what I want to be in life? Right, I got kids that have hoop dreams, they want to go to the NBA and all that, and I'm like, well, what are you doing to get there? Are you shooting 1,000 shots a day? No, Mr. Brown. Are you putting in, 4 hours a day? No, not really, Mr. Brown. Well, how much do you play 2K? Oh, I play 2K every day. How many hours? Well, about 2-3 hours. So you're putting in 15 to 20 hours in 2K, you want to go to the NBA, but you're barely putting in an hour a day working on your game. You're not going to get there. I know you all don't have cell phone policies. You got the cell phone policy, but you don't have your phones on. But this is what I want you to do. I want you, after school, turn on your phone, and I want you to activate your screen time if you haven't already done it. Because your phone does track your screen time for you. It gives you how many hours per day, it gives you your weekly average, and it also breaks down what apps you're using the most. I mean, I'm on it so hardcore. Whenever I'm talking to kids, kids that I work with closely, every single day I'm like, pull out your phone and let me see your screen time. I've seen kids that have been on TikTok for 13 hours in one day. Yeah, 13 hours for one day. And you know what? It's not just young people. Adults are hooked in just like that. I people watch. When I go to restaurants with my family, I'm looking at other tables, and most of the time, it could be a family sitting down and they're all like this until the waiter or the waitress comes. They're not even having a conversation with each other. I was walking with my family last summer, and we saw 5 girls sitting at the picnic table as we were walking up towards them, and I was actually happy to see kids hanging out outside. But as we got closer, I was disappointed because those girls were all sitting at the picnic table, but then they were just like this. And I just started asking myself, I wonder if they're communicating with each other on the social media platform rather than saying, let me have a conversation face to face because I'm sitting right next to you. So I started asking kids. So I'm like, when you sitting right next to your friend and you got your phones out, are y'all like communicating with each other over the phone? Yeah, Mr. Brown. I'm like, what kind of sense does that make? We're literally side by side. Now, it's one thing if my brother's stinking, right? Maybe you don't want to talk to me like this. And so you want to talk to me like that. But think about that. Like, what kind of sense does that make? We were made to be in connection with each other. And technology is starting to create a barrier. I'll give you one last example. I had my family, we were on vacation for spring break. We were in the Dominican Republic. We were having a great time. They had this one event where they had this big, huge buffet dinner. There was live music, there was entertainment, there was dancing. The whole nine, right? It was just live. And next to us was a family of grandparents, mom and dad, and 3 kids, probably under the age of 10. And I promise you, for like 45 minutes, with the exception of when they got up to get their dinner, That entire family, the entire time, didn't speak a word to each other. They were all glued to the phone. And I'm sitting there like, first of all, why do these young kids have their own cell phones? And literally the whole family, with everything that was going on around them, they were glued to the phone. Is that healthy for us as a human family? What happens if things start to break down again? What if technology breaks down on us? Are we going to be able to interact with each other in a human way? Or are we going to be at each other's throat? Right, because we've lost the skill of being social with each other. That's important. We've got to be social with each other. And the only way that we can do that is in person. And not by way of social media platforms. And again, right, you all were hooked into technology for 12, 13 hours a day as middle school kids or as elementary school kids. Right, and what are you going to be able to do to wane off of that, right? So this is the national data, but here's your data. Right, there was a question asking about how the phone affects your mood, right? Some of you all, 35% said mostly positive. 41% said it was a mix of positive and negative. Right? You're probably feeling positive, right? Because your dopamine is being released. But then when it came down to how many hours a day, and this was in middle school and high school, so this data isn't just yours. 17% of you all said that you are on your phone more than 6 hours a day. That's a full-time job. 29% said 4 to 6 hours a day. And then 44% said 1 to 3 hours per day. This is your data. The research says that when it comes down to technology and using it leisurely, it should be no more than an hour a day. You can use technology for educational purposes, but when it comes down to leisure and entertainment, it should really be no more than 1 hour per day. Right, and so I would say for these folks that are in the 17% and 29%, you got to figure out and start setting some goals for yourself to figure out how to reduce that screen time. When I started this, I was probably averaging about 4 hours a day. But a lot of it was me doing work, right? Emailing people, or every morning I get up and I like to read news articles on my phone. But I've even started to wane off of that because I found new research that shows that reading from actual text, actual books, the brain comprehends a lot better than reading from technology. Right? Which again, you ask the question, well, why are they forcing one-to-one devices on us and want us reading from technology rather than reading from books? It's dumbing us down to some extent, right? And just in my work, and with my shift of not reading so much from my phone and reading more from actual text, my screen time now is probably about an hour a day. And I didn't even consciously work to reduce my screen time. It really was just because I continue to educate myself and I'm having conversations with people that it's just naturally starting to happen without me even thinking about it in a serious way. When you're on the devices in an excessive way, here are the things that can happen to you. The first one is attention fragmentation, which means that you have the inability to focus for long periods of time. Right? If you have attention fragmentation, do you think you're really going to perform your best on the ACT, which is a 4-hour test? Right? Or because teenagers or young people on average receive 192 notifications per day, this doesn't impact you as much, but imagine if the cell phone policy here was loose. And you were able to have your devices and your smartwatches on you. And 192 a day, let's say you get 10 to 15 notifications per class. So every time that phone goes zzz, your attention is broken. You're not focused on the teacher because you're wondering about what's the notification, right? And then, so that takes about 10, 15 seconds, then you look at your phone, trying to figure out what it was, you might respond to it, and then you get back to the lesson. That could be a minute or longer of you not being locked into instruction, but if it happens 10 times a class, you could be at 15 minutes of lost instructional time because you were distracted from the phone. And if that happens over every class period, add it up. Add it up over a day, add it up over a week, and now it's impacting your ability to receive a high quality education because you're being distracted. Right, even the TVs, the apps, giving you the ability to be able to flip channels or flip shows. That's taking away your ability to focus in for longer periods of time because your brain is now, because it's being stimulated because of technology being so advanced and graphics and all of that. When there's so much moving, your brain is moving just like that. And so when it's time to sit down and actually focus and study for a test, you might not be able to do it because of the ways in which we're interfacing with the technology, right? So attention fragmentation. The second one is sleep deprivation. Are you really getting 40 hours of sleep? Or 8 hours of sleep per night, which should be 56 hours per week. I did this very same presentation for some 8th graders a few months ago, and there were some boys that, they were being honest. Oh, Mr. Brown, I wait for my parents to go to sleep. I get up, I get on the game, and I'm playing the game from like 10 at night to like 3 o'clock in the morning. I said, well, what time do you wake up to go to school? Oh, I have to be up about like 6:30 or 7. So I'm like, man, you sleep like 3.5, 4 hours a day. Yeah, Mr. Brown. I'm like, are you tired when you come to school? No, not really. And I'm like, are you sure about that? No. You all are still developing physically and mentally. And if you're not giving yourself 8 hours of sleep per night, you might not feel it now, but I can promise you, it will catch up to you. Right? So I worry about those 8th graders that are only getting 3 hours of sleep. At some point, they're going to break. And it's going to impact their learning, it's going to impact their overall livelihood. Right, so again, when you open up your phones, you need to monitor how much you're on the screen. Or when you are getting ready to go to bed, what's the last thing that you do? Are you scrolling through TikTok? Are you looking at other social media apps, right? Is the phone the last thing that you touch before you go to bed? And if it is, I would say put that phone away at least 30 minutes to an hour before you even lay down, right? Because again, this is stimulating your brain, right? Even if you lay it down and looking at it, when you put it down, it's still going to take some time for your brain to get into the place of rest mode. And it's going to take longer if that's the last thing that you do. Right? So you've got to start becoming more aware of your usage. How many of y'all have seen The Matrix? I'm wrapping it up. Okay? If you haven't seen The Matrix, it's an amazing movie. It's a movie about artificial intelligence waking up. It became conscious. And so when it became conscious, the machine world went to war with humans. And they beat the humans. But machines need energy to survive, and in that war, it destroyed the planet, it blotted out the sun, and so the world was without, the earth was without energy. And the only way that the machines could extract the energy was from human bodies. That they placed in these little modules, and they had the machine hooked into the back of a human's brain. And the human was alive, right, for the machine to extract the energy, but what the machine world did was it created a virtual reality or a virtual community, kind of like the social media platforms, right? And so when I think about that movie, we're not plugged into the machine world from the back of our heads, but I can sure tell you, we're hooked in this way. I see it all day, every day. And the other thing that you have to be mindful of is that if you are doing this a lot as a young person, it's altering your spinal cord. Right? Because your bones are still developing, but if you're doing this for 4 or 5 hours a day, or if you're on TikTok for 13 hours a day, you're reshaping your skeletal structure. Go look it up if you don't believe me. This is serious, young people. And so, all I can do is leave you with this. You all have one core value that says personal responsibility. I'm glad that they have a cell phone policy, but they really shouldn't need one. Especially once you're educated on the negative effects of what technology can do to you. And the negative impact that it has on school environments, right? Because we should not, I don't believe in controlling and telling young people what to do. I want to build you up to be responsible, to take personal responsibility and do the things that you need to do as young adults. Right, and so this conversation that I'm having with you is really not about the teachers in here. It's not about the principals. It's about what are you going to do with this information moving forward. Because it's real. It's real, and I hope that, my experience and my credentials resonated with you in a way where you're taking what I'm sharing with you seriously. Because I worry about our future. Because you all are our future, and I don't want technology to consume you. Because if it consumes you, it might be game over for us. Right? So, personal responsibility, get on that phone. If you're a gamer, time yourself. And wherever your numbers are, set a goal, right? If you're at 8 hours a day, don't think you're going to get to 2 hours in 1 week. Be realistic, right? Go from 8 to 7 over a 2-week period, then from 7 to 5, right? You know yourself better than I do. But set a plan. Like, seriously, set a plan. If you're doing 30 to 40 hours a week leisurely on screen time and gaming, it's not going to help you in the long run, young people. Hey, Sevastopol, I appreciate your undivided attention. I wish you all the best in the rest of your school year. I love y'all. Be the best version of yourselves and have a great rest of your day. Thank you.